Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Wonders and Miracles, where we get to celebrate miraculous moments in everyday lives. My name is Liza Lawrence, and I'm so happy to have you join me today as we talk with Shana from California about her near-death experience. Before we jump in, if you love miracle stories and want to hear more, hit the like and subscribe button so you can catch all the inspiring and uplifting episodes of real people sharing real miracles. All right, well, we are here today with Shana. She has a really incredible story to share with us today. Just a little background, Shana left her home in Australia to work in America. And after a successful 20-year career in which she's been a COO in media and advertising, leading a global team over Virgin voyages and more, she discovered that she was in need of a kidney transplant. And if that wasn't enough, her heart was also only working at 15%. And the doctors said she would need a heart transplant as well. Shana had an NDE, or a near-death experience, when she flatlined for 2 minutes, only to be able to now tell her story of strength, resilience, and how she was able to not only survive it all, but discover her faith. And I'm so excited to have you on, Shana. Can't wait to hear all the details of this story. So go ahead and tell us your story.
Thank you so much, Liza. First off, I'm really, really blessed to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My story is an interesting one. Even though it happened to me, I feel like there's still parts of it that I'm in disbelief over. So my kidneys failed Christmas Eve 2015. And this was after a 12-year stint in my career where I had worked crazy hours. The normal person works 1,800 hours a year, and I had worked at about 3,500. So you can imagine it was a lot. I thought I was burnt out. And I thought, what I need to do is go to Bali and just relax and do yoga twice a day and eat vegan. That's what it is. I'm just burnt out completely. And I went to Bali. Bali's a very spiritual, sacred place. And I'd gone through these healing waters. And I thought to myself, when I get back, I'm going to get clear on all of my numbers. Like, what is my blood pressure? What is my resting heart rate? Or just my standard numbers of my body? What's my blood type? I had no idea. And for some reason, coming through these healing waters, that's what I was left with. Bali is 2-hour flight from my hometown where I was born, which is a little outback country town called Darwin, Australia. Darwin is the hottest city in Australia. It's very tropical. And so I went home and we were celebrating the fact that I was home and I'd had a really amazing few years in my career and my family was there. And lo and behold, Christmas Eve, I felt really, really sick and we went to the hospital. They said my kidneys were failing. And sitting there, I remember having the experience of seeing myself outside of myself and thinking, I moved to the US when I was 22 with $500 in my pocket for an internship. I didn't know anybody in Los Angeles. I'd never been here before, anything. I'd had this amazing career. I've traveled the world. I did all of these things. And here I am back here in the hospital in which I was born. And I thought, and I'm going to die here. Like, this doesn't go like this. This is not the ending of the story. Like, this is just not how this is meant to go. And I remember feeling the feeling of being out of my body and just hearing and seeing how I would talk to myself. Like, you're hungry, but you don't have to eat. Just wait until you finish the next meeting. Oh, you're thirsty. You want to drink water. Just give it another hour, finish your phone call, then go get water. Oh, I get it. You're tired, but you've got 3 more things to do. Just keep going and then you can sleep later. And I remember hearing that. And the doctor had said to me, did you feel any symptoms? And I said, well, not really. And he said, were you tired? And I'm like, well, isn't everybody tired? I'm in advertising. And he goes, well, there's tired and there's tired. And then he said, did your back hurt? And I was like, well, doesn't everybody's back hurt? I'm in advertising. Every question he had, I'd say, I'm in advertising. Of course I'm tired. Of course my back hurts. When I look back now, I feel like that was probably the first time that God saved me. And at the time, I believed in God. I grew up in a very Catholic family. Getting your communion was just what you did. There was no question about it. And I remember at the time saying, no, I don't like the nun, and I'm not going to Sunday school. I'm not doing it. And I said to my grandma at 8 years old, if you force me, I'll cuss every time I go. And she said, let's definitely not embarrass our family name. Let's just let her stay home and forget it. And I remember even as a little girl, I couldn't sit in church. I hated it. Fast forward to 2015, I was still the same. Still hadn't gotten my communion or my confirmation, and I was still the same. I couldn't be in church, weddings, christenings, all go. But I just couldn't sit there. I don't know what it was. I just could not sit there. My aunt is a Catholic nun even, and I still couldn't go. You still couldn't convince me. So 2015, Christmas Eve, I have the realization of how I've been treating myself. And I thought, gosh, there must be some kind of God intervention here, because it is Christmas Eve after all, right? So I started to kind of pique my curiosity. Again, I believed in God, but more like a belief. Like, I know I'm smart. Like, I know there's something bigger than us. I very much believe in energy, and I very much believe in the afterlife. And then I was like, whether it's God or Allah or Buddha or whoever, the universe, Gaia, whoever, there is a creator of all of this. It's not just science. So I was intelligent enough to know there is something else. And my grandmother has always said to me, believe in something greater than yourself. If you are solely reliant on only what you have in your physical body and your own capability, you will never have peace, because you have already decided what you're capable of. So that was my mantra. It was like, there's something there. I don't know what, but miracles have always happened for me in the sense of unexpected or what is seemingly impossible. But I've always known that it's been out of my doing, my focus, and where I put my energy is what comes to. And so that was my attitude. So when I got back to America in 2016, just after the new year, the first thing I did was get my medical team together. I had at work started an intern program where I taught a college class. And in the college class, we helped 6 nonprofits. One of them was the National Kidney Foundation, if you could believe it.
Had you organized that before the kidney failure?
Yes.
Wow.
2 years before. So she was my first phone call. And you can already start to see the unraveling, right? Like, she was my first phone call, and I'm thinking, well, there's something to this. There's all this synchronicities. She said, the head of the National Kidney Foundation, the lady's name is Pierre. Pierre said, no problem. Here's my board members. This is the nephrologist. See these people. And that kicked off me as an executive. I put together a team of people. I didn't even have a primary care physician at the time.
Wow.
And suddenly I got a Facebook ad that said One Medical. And I thought, why have I not gone to the doctor this whole time? And it was because I hated the doctor's office. I didn't like the smell of it. I didn't like the waiting room. I didn't like being around sick people. And One Medical has a spa environment where they had lemon water in the waiting room and essential oils. And I thought, this is so perfect for me. And again, it was just all these resources started to show up. So I went through 4 years of dialysis, and it was the end of 2018. And a lady called me out of the blue. Her name was Katie. And Katie said, I was listening to a podcast and your friend Sebastian was speaking about the fact that you needed a kidney donor on this podcast. The minute I saw your face, God spoke to me and said, I needed to give you my kidney. And I thought, who is this lady? Like, how is this even a thing? And this was at the end of 2018. And so she went through all of the testing. She finally got approved August 2020. And it was delayed by COVID because kidney transplants are elective surgery, if you can imagine.
Wow, really?
And so they were delayed by 6 months. And so she finally got approved. When she got approved, we were so excited. We were so elated. The doctor said, all you need to do are 2 tests to clear you. One is a CT scan, ultrasound, and one is a stress test. Well, the kidney ultrasound came back and it said I had a cyst on my right kidney. And they said there's 70% chance that it's cancerous. And I thought, the same kidneys you've been looking at this point, it's 5 years. Surely this can't be happening. And I was devastated. I thought, I'm going to die. The synchronicities that had been happening to show me these resources had now shown me that it wasn't meant to be. It was delayed because of COVID. And then here was the next one. And I thought, there's no way. 2 days later, the cardiologist called and he said, forget your kidney. Your heart's at 15%. What happened? And I was like, well, I don't know. I genuinely was like, for sure, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I felt like I was in the movie Final Destination, where, if it's not the car accident, it's the garbage disposal, right?
Something's going to get you.
Something is going to get you. And I thought, that's it. So I'm sitting on the couch this one day and I thought, I probably should get right with God because I feel like I'm going to die. If there really is a God, I haven't done my communion. I'm like completely out of whack, right? Like I have to get it all the way together. I was sitting here and I was talking to one of my best friends and I said to her, I really want to do Bible study, but not with like a group of people that are hugging me and stuff. Like I don't want any of that. I don't want to do potlucks or anything. I just want to like really read a Bible just so that I can make sure that if there is a God, that I've got at least the terminology, like just the basics. And then I remembered I have an aunt that's a Catholic nun, a real one, in the sense that I've never seen her in plain clothes. I've only ever seen her in her nun uniform. And she lives in a convent and everything. So I called her and I told her the story and I said, I feel like I'm going to die. And she goes, yeah, you might. And I thought, what kind of a nun are you? I was like, aren't you supposed to help people? And she goes, yes, this is a very serious situation. You might die. But either way, you're taken care of. So all there is to do is to understand, what are you going to do with the time that you have here? Whether that's 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years, or 10 decades. What are you going to do with your life while you're here? And I thought, wow, that's all there is to focus on. That was Labor Day 2020. The first thing we did was start with the Psalms, and really reading the Psalm that she now has coined as my Psalm, which is about the fact that God knows every hair on your head and every thought in your mind and every want and wish that you've ever had. He already knows it. And me being intellectual, I was like, okay, well, if he knows it, then I don't need to pray. He knows it. And I started to have a conversation. And I would say to my aunt, in the first week, I said to her, can we do Bible study every Saturday? And like a true Catholic nun, she says, yes, darling, and Wednesdays. And I was like, now I'm going to do it for 2 hours a week. right in the middle of my day. At this point, I'm a COO of an advertising agency. And I'm like, I don't have time for this. Plus, I'm sick. Plus, I'm going to doctors. But it was sacred time. And every Saturday and every Wednesday, we would get on the phone and we would take 4 or 5 words and just really take it in. And for me, it gave me grounding inside of there's something greater than me at work. There has to be. I think at that point, I really surrendered to, if I'm going to die, if that is my destiny, then that's what it is. But also that I'm in partnership with God. And one of the things she said was, she teaches kindergarten, so she's got a very fun way of explaining things. And she says, yes, God's our father, but he's not like your father, like a parental. He doesn't punish you if you do this or not punish you if you do that. And she said, it sounds like you need to rebuild your whole relationship with God from scratch. And he's not human. I knew it logically and intellectually, but that for me made a difference. Because it was like, if he's not human, then me trying to understand him makes no difference. Because I'm never going to clearly, right? Like I don't
can't comprehend it.
No, I can't even see it from his vantage point. So that's where I was like, okay, well, I can't see it from his vantage point. I don't know why he's doing any of this. I don't like it. And what am I going to do with my time that I have here? And that's kind of where I ended up. And so she would give me these little tasks that were days long, or for the next 14 days, we're going to, for the next 21 days, we're going to, and she would just keep me moving along. Or there'd be like 10 lines in a psalm. We're going to learn 1 line every week. Or fast forward to early November. They by then had tried to do 2 different surgeries on me to get my heart function up. They didn't work. And we'd resolved that I did need a heart and kidney transplant. And they would have to surgically remove my kidney first, but they had to get my heart strong enough to do the kidney surgery first, and then confirm that it wasn't cancerous, then clear me all over again to put me back on the list for a heart and kidney, and then wait. I was still in final destination. Even with all the work I'd done with my aunt, I was like, for sure, my days are numbered. There's just no way. No one gets through all of that. And I remember a conversation that I had with my nephrologist. He said, you know, I'm a deacon, right? And I said, well, no, I didn't know you were a deacon. Now you tell me you're a deacon. And he goes, yes, and your name has been at our altar for the last year. And our whole church has been praying for you. I don't normally tell my patients this, but this is what's been happening. And he says, I'm a deacon and my cardiologist is very Jewish. All we need now is a Muslim doctor. We've got all the gods covered and we're going to pray for everything. And he said, but we're still at it. We have a game plan. And my cardiologist said the same thing. I have a game plan. We're going to work it out. And so I thought, I think I'm going to die. So I was like, they've got a game plan. They keep telling me, and I was thinking to myself, this whole God thing, he needs to show up very quickly because this is not looking good. And so my best friend calls, I tell her the story and I catch her up. And she says, this is the best thing ever. And I'm like, what? She goes, here's how it's going to go. You're going to have the surgery to get your kidney removed at Thanksgiving. And you're going to give an organ out to the universe as thanks. They're going to clear it. And then at Christmas, you're going to get your heart and kidney as a gift. And she says, I love this. It's a Hallmark movie. And I only ever thought I was going to get to watch Hallmark movies in my life. And now I get to be in one. This is the best thing ever. And I thought, well, I'm in Final Destination. Her movie sounds way better. So I'm going to get into her movie. But I still had doubt. But I was like, you know what? If that's how her way of dealing, I'm with it. It's way more positive than mine. So we jump into her movie and they end up scheduling the surgery to get my kidney removed the week before Thanksgiving. And so I thought, well, like it's going the way she said. So I called my doctor, the cardiologist, and I said, listen, we're making a Christmas movie because my kidneys failed on Christmas Eve. So now my heart and kidney are going to come on Christmas Day. It's going to be a Christmas miracle. We're making a Hallmark movie. We need to hurry this whole thing up. And he goes, it doesn't really work like that. But if anyone can do it, you can. And in the meantime, I'd continued on my Bible study twice a week. December 22nd, the doctor calls me in to Cedars-Sinai here in Los Angeles, and they do the last of 2 tests, which was my heart pressures. And he says, if we can find you a bed, we'll admit you. And he said, but I think you're good to go home. We'll put you on the list, but you'll wait at home for a few months. And as he says it, he's not 1,000% sure. I could feel it, and he could feel it even in his saying. And at this point, it was COVID. Here in LA, was 1 in 3 people had it. Bad COVID, like intubated in hospital. ER was full. And so he was like hesitant to even have me there just around everybody that was sick. And then he changed his mind at the last minute, came back and said, we found you a bed, we'll admit you. If we admit you, you wait on the list for 6 to 8 weeks. But if they stay stable, you go home, that's a few months. Either way, it's still going to be a couple of months. So it's not going to happen at Christmas. And he said, but you can still make a movie. You just make it loosely based on facts. And I was like, there's no way anyone's going to watch a Hallmark movie that is like actually happened in February. It has to happen on Christmas to be legit. It can't be something that happens later. And I said, it needs to be a Christmas miracle. So they admit me into hospital. And there was a moment where a nurse came up and she said, don't get attached to me. That was the first thing she said. And I thought, oh, okay. She goes, they've called me up from a completely different floor just to make sure that you're taken care of. And she said, my name is Pai, P-A-I. And I said, I'm sorry, what did you say? And she said, my name is Pai, P-A-I. Now, Pai is what I call my grandfather. It means dad in Portuguese. I was his absolute favorite out of 20 plus grandchildren. And it was in that moment I thought, I'm going to be taken care of. They admitted me on December 22nd. No one could come near me. That even the nurses or the doctors that came in, if they had to check me, it was only one that would come up to me. They were very, very, very careful. I had tubes everywhere. And all I had was Facebook and my FaceTime on my cell phone. And so my aunt continued to call. We continued to do different prayers. And I posted on Facebook, I said, look, it's awkward to ask, but if you know of a loved one that's passing, you can nominate me to receive their organs. I'm in hospital and we're praying for a Christmas miracle. And the doctor called on Christmas Eve and he said, you're cleared and we've got you on the list. We've done everything humanly possible. And now we pray. And the month of December, the clearances normally take 3 to 4 months. I did them in 4 days. They thought that was a miracle, just that I could get that many specialists in the office to check me and see me that day or the next day and get all of my clearances done. It was a bunch of work as a team, but that's where I really got the notion of I'm in partnership with God. That's where I thought, if there is a God, then I need to do everything humanly possible because I'm the human in the partnership. So I need to do everything humanly possible and listen. And so often what we call our gut instinct or what we call the niggling feeling, that's God trying to talk to you. And we don't listen. We wash it away. It's a whisper. We wash it away. We dismiss it. We say, no, that's just me, my insecurity or my whatever. And it's like, wait, if you really get, and that's what happened for me was I got really, really good at silencing noise because I had nothing else in that moment. It makes me so emotional because I thought, I'm going to die. I've got nothing else. Everything I've ever done, everything I've ever accomplished doesn't mean anything because I'm sitting here. I barely have enough strength to walk up a flight of stairs. And so it really was like, if there is a moment in time that you need to show up, you need to show up right now for me. And I would say, I've done everything right. I'm a good person. So as I'm sitting in the hospital on Christmas Eve, the chaplain of the hospital walks in and she said, I heard you're praying for a miracle. Would you like a rosary? And I said, sure. And she gives me this little plastic rosary. And I call my aunt and I said, the chaplain gave me a rosary. I don't know how to use it. What do I do with this? So my aunt teaches me how to pray the rosary on Christmas Eve. And thousands of people started to ping me. My phone just kept going off. The nurses, the other patients on the floor, we were all praying for a miracle. And I had sent out a message and I said, whatever you believe in, positive affirmations, manifesting God, Jesus, some version of that, whatever you believe in. In my family, when someone is in need, we light a white candle and we keep the candle lit until the person is good. We also put white roses on our favorite statue. That's our family tradition. That's what I shared. And I said, whatever version, people made altars. It was Christmas Eve. So they took all the prayers to their congregations, which were all online because no one could be in church. Right. It was like we were all just wanting a miracle to happen after a year of not being able to actually commune together and congregate, you know, do the rituals that each person had in community. The next day, I'd really surrendered. And I said to one of the nurses, if we have to be here, we're having fun on Christmas. We shared, we laughed. I met a whole bunch of them. Everyone was like, we're praying for a Christmas miracle. We're making a Christmas movie. It just was a constant conversation. 10:30 p.m. Christmas Day. At this point, I prayed the rosary 3 times with my aunt. She's in Portugal. She's on a different time zone. And the nurse walked in. 2 of them stood at the door and one was going to measure my heart pressures. And the other one said, we still have time. It's just Christmas. Like there's still a couple hours. The rest of us are all praying, but you should probably go to sleep. And I said, yeah, you're right. And I picked up my phone to check the time. And I leaned back. And as I leaned back to lay down, the phone rang. And they said, we have a heart and a kidney for you. And everybody erupted. The whole floor was like, what? It happened. And it was like cheering. And then suddenly there was just this eerie silence of like, wow, this stuff actually works. And the nurse that was standing next to me, his name was John, he looked at me and he was just like, I can't believe that it never happens in one day. And so the next day they were like, you're our Christmas miracle. They're going to want to take so many pictures of you. We need to make sure you look hot after surgery. And I'm like, oh, you're totally speaking my language. And so they were braiding me up. We did facials. They got me all sterilized. And the anesthesiologist came in. He had done my procedure in September. And we had talked about the connection between your emotion, your mental state, and your physical body. And how when someone says, my heart sunk when I heard the news, that your heart function actually drops 20 to 30% for 2 to 3 weeks. So he remembered me because we'd had such a great conversation about the connection between your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual all together. And he walked in and goes, Shana, I'm so excited. I've got you. I'm going to do your entire surgery. We got this. I can't believe it. You're our Christmas miracle. And then the cardiologist comes in and goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You called it. And the surgeon comes in. And my normal conversation with the surgeons that I'd had was they always ask how I am. And I'm like, don't worry about me. I'm asleep. How are you? Did you eat breakfast? Did you fight with your wife? Like, where are you at in your mood? Is your energy right? You know? So as they're standing there, I start to feel lightheaded. I said to them, I don't feel good. And they took my blood pressure. And the last thing I remember was the nurse saying it's 50/30. And I fell asleep. And then I was in this wide open space of blackness. I was kind of confused and I couldn't quite make out. And I was like, where am I? It's almost like if you close your eyes, it's not dark. It's not like a light needs to be turned on, but it's like an open space. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking like, what is going on? And then I thought, oh. And the minute I had the feeling of, oh, I was standing there in a hallway and I was kind of leaning, looking down the hallway of like, where does this go? And there was Jesus, who clear as day, I could pick him out of a lineup. And then there was God, who was a male shadow. He looked like an ancient man, but as a shadow. I couldn't make out any features or anything, just the outline and a light behind them. And all of a sudden, I felt this overwhelming sense of compassion that just washed over me. It's as if you took all of the world's compassion and times it by 10,000, and it just washed over me. And instantly I felt a familiarity. Instantly I felt like, I know where I am. And then Jesus looked at me and he goes and did a little nod to God, like, now's your moment. And I was standing there and God said, he spoke to me and he said, you are to start a church with your best friend, all denomination, not with the intention to convert, but to demonstrate that we are all united simply because we are religious. I never intended religion to divide, only to unite. And I said, okay. And then I came back and I was in the infinite darkness again. And then suddenly I could feel someone trying to wake me up. And I thought, who is trying to wake me up? Like, what do they want? They're so aggressive. And I was like, what is going on? And I opened my eyes and it was the nurse doing CPR. And it was a nurse that I had met earlier. Her name was Margaret. And I said, Margaret, relax. And I moved her off of me. And I sat up. I said, guys, relax. I just took a little nap. Where were we?
Oh my
goodness. Their eyes were hanging out of their heads. I remembered everything the minute I sat up. It wasn't a recollection that came later. I knew exactly where I was. I had the strength after CPR on my chest for 2 minutes to actually sit up. And I knew what was happening where I was. And the surgeon said, take her to the OR right now. They raced me to the OR. They opened up my chest. My heart wasn't there yet. It was in a helicopter coming because they'd come in a couple of hours earlier just to say hello. And then we're going to come back and get me. And so they were making sure I was ready. The helicopter landed on top of Cedars-Sinai. They run up and get the heart, put it into me. It starts beating immediately. My kidney came 14 hours later. I needed another surgery a few hours after that because they'd found a blood clot from all the contraptions that were in and out of me for surgery. So they raced me back in and did a third surgery on my calf muscle. And with 20 staples in my left leg, across my knee to my calf, with my chest sawn in half, and with my kidney, which is like from like the edge of your waist and hip all the way through to the middle. 3 days later, I was walking. 20 days later, I was discharged. That was January 15. And by February 15, I was driving. And I can't explain it. The only thing I can say is during that time, I felt God light a fire inside of me like a match. It's that feeling has never gone away. It's never dissipated. I'm the most unlikely candidate. And I still struggle to go to church, which my best friend says to me, minor detail. You don't even like going to church. She's like, hello, how are you going to start a church? You don't even like going. And I'm like, I can't even unpack it. I don't even know what it means. I don't even know. I got no clue, none. But what resonated for me most was when he said, you are too, I didn't hear it like a mission. I heard it like that is my function, my core function.
Oh, I love that.
Of how he built me for this. I'm purpose built for it. That to me is the true definition of living God's plan for you. I don't even know what it means. All I know is I'm supposed to be right now doing podcasts like this because I couldn't sleep. And this was not on my milestone list. It wasn't on my career trajectory. It wasn't something I wrote down in a diary to manifest. None of that. Like if I had just like wanted to see something, it wouldn't have been God and Jesus. Like I was not, it wasn't like I was a believer my whole life and then I prayed my whole life and this was what had come of it. And that's what I think is special. That's what I think he purpose built me for, is for those that have lost hope. People ask me now if I'm a believer and I'm like, that's like asking me if I ate lunch today or if I believe I ate lunch. I was there, I saw it. And that feeling of compassion, since then, I've had at least 50 people touch my body and start weeping, and they don't know why. People that will hold my hand and go, there's something about you. I'm so humbled by it because I'm like, little old me that is like, doesn't even follow the rules now, like even after all this. That's what makes it real for me, is like I'm the most unlikely candidate.
Do you think that, because your healing was so quick and obviously as you're telling the story, there was divine orchestration in this whole thing, the timing of everything, your experience on the other side. Do you feel like something physically changed within your personal vibration as far as that compassion, that divine love? Has that affected you, do you think?
It's definitely changed in me. What's interesting about it is it's not universal. What I've noticed is those that have the opening for it. It's those that are listening, are seeking. I was in CVS a couple months ago and the lady turned around and like she could see my scar. And she said, oh, you've had a heart surgery, and just hugged me. I didn't even have a chance to do anything. She just hugs me. And she said, I'm so sorry. I just felt the need to. And then two people behind were like, can we hug you too? And I thought, sure. I was like, sure. But this is what the hilarity is. I'm a super germaphobe. And I'm like, it's that's how I know I'm like really living God's plan for me, because I'm like, this is not what I would be left to my own devices. And it happens when I share my story. It happens when I see someone else feel a little more hope for the situation they're dealing with. Even the doctors, I had one of the doctors say to me, your story sustained me. He said, well, I'm in surgery and I think I don't have another couple hours left. I think of you and I go through another couple of hours. Another one of the doctors texted me and he said, I miss you. And I thought, wow, it's because he's probably had a really long day with a bunch of patients that, at the end of the day, we're all human and we are connected by the same thing, the fear of dying, the fear of loving, all of the same commonalities. And I just happened to be divine timing that this was God's opportunity to have another person. But according to him, it's like, I just get it. I'm purpose built, which that's where I started the whole Bible study with my aunt, was around, he knows me because he made me. And just that gives me peace. Just that helps me sleep.
I love your awareness of you are built for this unification. It sounds like that's what the message was a lot. And when you think about, as you're talking, people hugging you, that's a union. People coming together to pray together for another human, that's a union. That's, this communion, this coming together is one of your purposes. What you're doing, even though you're not trying to do that, that is happening through you. And perhaps that was part of that message that God was saying, like, look how you're built, look what you can do and you are doing. And we need more people like that unify rather than divide. Anyway, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Did you have any other messages, or was that the essence of the message from God and Jesus?
So that was when I was flatlining. Since then, he speaks to me very loudly, very often,
Wow.
very clearly. One of the bigger ones that stands out, I came out of it deathly afraid of the dark. I had the lights on for 6 months, every single light in my house all the time, and no doors closed, nothing like that. Everything on, everything open, wide open space. And one night I walked into the house while I was talking on the phone on a work phone call, and it got dark while I was sitting talking, and I didn't notice. And just as I did, I went, and I sort of stopped myself and was like, okay, wait. And it was like I froze, and that feeling of that overwhelming compassion rolled in again.
Wow.
And in that moment, he said, the light that I have lit inside of you, no man can extinguish. And I thought, okay. So there's one-liners like that. And I know it must be, so I don't talk like that.
Right.
And even just remembering it overwhelms me with like so much. It's so filling that it's like so hard to describe. It's such a special, sacred experience that I get to have. And it's off the back of so much pain that really must be the grace of God. There cannot be any other explanation, because if you left it on paper, I shouldn't even be here. It's not like the movies, as they say, where when you flatline, even for a minute, you don't normally come back and lucid.
Yeah. Well, Shana, actually, before we hit record, you talked a little bit about the process of miracles and creating miracles with, in that partnership with God. Do you see a process? Is there something that you've learned about miracles through this?
Yes, I really, really have. And what I've learned is that there is a process, and in that process, there is a surrender, where it's a balance of recognizing that you are highly capable of everything and nothing at the same time. And what that looked like for me was get grounded spiritually. Whatever that is for you, get grounded spiritually. The second part to it was silence everything else. Don't listen to averages. Don't listen to Dr. Googles that have never gone to doctor school. And even doctors, I had a very specific process with them that was, we don't talk about standard, average, national average. We talk about my body today. This blood test say, not the one from 7 weeks ago, this one. And what are we going to do about it? And if there's nothing I can do about it, I don't want to know about it. So I was very specific about setting up my communication boundaries. I'm not a patient. I'm a person that went through this experience, and you went with me. You happen to be very medical. I happen to be good with my mental strength. That's what we focus on. So it was like a very specific set of setting up the right people. And every single one of my doctors was someone who believed and had faith in something greater than themselves. They knew they were capable of creating miracles, and at the same time, they control nothing. So it was both. It was like us really partnering together. The most critical part for me is I was willing, and I did everything humanly possible. And I surrounded myself with people who were doing the same thing, everything humanly possible. And then we surrendered. And it's very important to know that that is a partnership. It's not, we didn't sit and pray and that's it.
Yeah, you did your part and then allowed God to do his part.
Yeah. And called me. Like, you've got to, now it is like, this is the moment. I can't do this by myself. That's my prayer. That's basically my prayer.
Well, I love it. Plus, you sent out on Facebook like a message like, join me in this, it sounds like. I mean, you were asking for prayers.
Yes. And pray for me in their way. Whatever called them to do.
Yeah.
Even if they were called to pray. And as a result, I think many of them will share that they were connected to hope and faith in a way that they didn't even know existed.
I love that. Once again, an invitation to unify with a higher power for people. I love that so much. How do you feel like this has changed your life since then? And or has it changed your life? And in what ways?
Fundamentally, in my personality, I'd say it has made me more of who I am and given me more license to be. And I'm very cognizant of where I spend my time, who I spend my time with, and what I spend my time doing, even what I spend my time talking about. And I think how it has changed me is I feel so lucky. It makes me really emotional that I had the opportunity to skip over being a believer and going straight into it just is.
The knowing.
And I can't explain it. And I never will be able to. I don't understand why he does what he does. And that's where miracles happen, is when you allow yourself to knock. Because if you look at the true definition, and that's where I think I've changed, is when I look at the true definition of what is a miracle, it is something that is inexplicable.
Right.
That's the definition of what makes it a miracle. Yet we spend so much of our lives trying to understand and trying to be understood. And I would say that's probably the biggest thing that has changed. I spend a lot less time explaining myself and a lot less time questioning areas where I'm never going to understand it. And I think that gives me more time of my life back. Like, that actually allows me to sleep knowing that the world is made up of a whole bunch of things I'm just never going to understand. And that God is something that isn't to be understood. And I think that's what's changed, where I would question it previously is it real or not? Or the questioning of, I don't get it. I don't understand why. And then knowing that that's an unanswerable question until it's not. Right. So it's that's what's changed in me. The knowing is such a gift. And that's what I hope to share. Third party, but I hope that gives some resonance to people where they can move from being a believer into being a knower, maybe a little faster because they heard this podcast. I go back to my grandma's words. Believe in something greater than yourself. Doesn't matter what it is. Just know that you by yourself, you're limited. But with something greater than you, miracles do happen.
Amen.
Right?
Amen. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story. Truly miraculous.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate being on here, and I so appreciate meeting you and having this conversation. So great what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this miracle story. Please subscribe to my channel if you liked it. You can also find me on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. And remember to notice and celebrate miracles everywhere, because the more miracles we notice, the more miracles happen.